Bear Cub was stuck in the chimney of a burning cabin. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning fog rolled through Pine Ridge Valley like a thick blanket. Baby Iris sat in her wooden high chair playing with a spoon. Her parents, Thomas and Rachel Whitmore, moved around their cabin preparing breakfast. The old wood stove crackled, sending warmth through the small home. "Did you check the weather?" Rachel asked, cracking eggs into a pan. Thomas shook his head. "Radio's been dead since yesterday. That storm really did a number on us." Outside, the forest stirred. A young black bear cub wandered near the cabin. Its mother was nowhere in sight. The cub sniffed the air, catching the smell of cooking food. It had been separated from its mother for 2 days now. Iris dropped her spoon. It clattered on the floor. She looked toward the window and made a soft cooing sound. Her blue eyes focused on something her parents couldn't see. "What is it, sweetie?" Rachel asked, picking up the spoon. The cub climbed onto a stack of firewood beside the cabin. From there, it could reach the roof. Its small claws scraped against the wooden shingles as it explored. The smell of breakfast grew stronger near the chimney. Thomas opened the cabin door to get more wood. "Looks like we'll need to stock up before winter really hits," he said. The cub heard the door and scrambled higher on the roof. Its paw slipped on the wet shingles. In its panic, it tumbled forward, right into the wide opening of the chimney. Inside the cabin, Iris suddenly started crying. Not her usual hungry cry or tired cry. This was different. Her tiny hands reached toward the ceiling. "She's never like this," Rachel said, lifting the baby from the high chair. A strange scratching sound came from above. Thomas looked up. "Probably just branches on the roof," he said. But the scratching continued. Then came a whimper. Not human, not wind. Something alive was in their chimney. The cub struggled in the narrow space. Its claws couldn't find purchase on the sooty brick walls. Each movement sent it sliding deeper into the chimney. Panic set in. The cub cried out, a high-pitched sound that echoed through the cabin. Iris stopped crying. She stared at the fireplace with an intensity that made Rachel pause. The baby reached her arms toward the hearth, making urgent sounds. "Thomas, I think something's wrong," Rachel said. He walked to the fireplace and listened. The whimpering was clearer now. "There's an animal in our chimney," he said. Outside, the fog began to lift, but inside the chimney the cub's world grew darker. It couldn't climb up, it couldn't go down. Trapped between walls of brick, it cried for its mother. Iris squirmed in Rachel's arms, still reaching for the fireplace. Her determination surprised both parents. This wasn't normal baby behavior. She seemed to understand something they didn't. "We need to put out the fire," Thomas said quickly. He grabbed the water bucket. As he poured water on the flames, smoke billowed up. The cub coughed and cried louder. Iris mimicked the sound, a tiny echo of the trapped animal's distress. "What do we do?" Rachel asked. "We can't leave it there." Thomas examined the chimney. "It's too narrow for me to reach in, and we can't tear apart the chimney." The morning that started so peacefully had turned into a crisis. Somewhere in the forest, a mother bear searched for her cub. In the cabin, a human family faced an impossible situation, and in the chimney, a frightened cub waited for rescue. Iris looked at her parents with eyes that seemed older than her 11 months. She pointed at the fireplace again, more insistent this time. Whatever was about to happen, this baby seemed to know it would change everything. Thomas knelt beside the fireplace, pressing his ear against the cold brick. The cub's cries had grown weaker. Time was running out. He tried reaching up into the chimney, but his arm was too thick. The opening narrowed quickly above the hearth. "Maybe we should call someone," Rachel suggested, shifting Iris to her other hip. "The nearest ranger station is 40 miles away," Thomas replied. "By the time they get here—" He didn't finish the sentence. Iris began to cry again, but this time she wiggled so hard that Rachel almost dropped her. The baby's hands stretched desperately toward the floor. All right," Rachel said, setting Iris down on the cabin's wooden floor. The moment her feet touched the ground, Iris crawled straight to the fireplace. She moved faster than her parents had ever seen her move. Her tiny palms slapped against the floor with determination. "Iris, no!" Rachel reached for her daughter, but Iris had already made it to the hearth. She sat back on her diaper and studied the fireplace opening. Then she did something extraordinary. She began making soft, rhythmic sounds, not baby babble. These sounds had a pattern, almost like a lullaby. The cub's whimpering changed. It became less frantic. The scratching stopped. In the chimney, the young bear seemed to be listening. "What is she doing?" Thomas whispered. Rachel shook her head in wonder. "I've never heard her make those sounds before." Iris continued her strange melody. She placed her small hand on the brick wall beside the fireplace opening. Her fingers traced the mortar lines between the bricks. She paused at one particular brick near the floor. It was slightly loose, worn by years of heat and cold. The baby pushed against the brick. It didn't budge. She tried again, using both hands. Still nothing. Iris looked up at her parents, then back at the brick. Her face scrunched with effort as she pushed once more. "She's trying to tell us something," Rachel said. She knelt beside her daughter. "This brick?" Iris patted the brick urgently. Above them, the cub made a small sound. It was different from its earlier cries, almost hopeful. Thomas grabbed a poker from beside the fireplace. "Stand back," he said. He wedged the tool behind the loose brick and pulled. The brick shifted slightly. Mortar dust fell to the floor. Iris clapped her hands. The sound echoed up the chimney. The cub responded with a soft grunt. "There's something behind here," Thomas said. He pulled harder. The brick came free, revealing a small cavity in the chimney's base. Years ago, someone had created this hidden space, probably for storing valuables. But that wasn't what caught Thomas's attention. The cavity opened into a wider section of the chimney's interior structure. It was an old cleaning access, sealed and forgotten when the cabin was renovated. "I can see up into the chimney," Thomas said. "There's a ledge about 3 feet up. The cub must be stuck just above it." Iris crawled closer. She peered into the opening, then made her musical sounds again. The cub responded immediately. They could hear it shifting position, trying to move toward the sound. "It's following her voice," Rachel breathed. Thomas removed another brick. The opening grew wider. "If we can get the cub to drop down to that ledge, maybe we can reach it." But the cub was frightened. Every time Thomas reached into the opening, it scrambled higher. Its claws scraped desperately against the brick, sending soot raining down. Iris tugged on her father's shirt. When he looked at her, she pointed at herself, then at the opening. "No," Thomas said firmly. "You're too small. It's dangerous." But Iris was persistent. She made her soothing sounds again. The cub calmed instantly. It even made a small chirping noise in response. "She's the only one it trusts," Rachel said quietly. "Look how it responds to her." Thomas wrestled with the decision. The opening was now large enough for Iris to fit through. The ledge was stable, but putting his baby daughter into a chimney with a wild animal seemed insane. Another sound echoed through the forest, a deep, rumbling growl. Not from the chimney, from outside. The cub heard it too, and began crying frantically. "The mother," Thomas said. "She's looking for her cub." They heard heavy footsteps on the cabin's porch. The wooden boards creaked under the weight. The mother bear was circling their home, following her baby's scent. Iris seemed to understand the urgency. She crawled into the opening before her parents could stop her. Her small body fit easily through the gap. She sat on the ledge inside the chimney's base, looking up into the darkness. "Iris!" Rachel reached for her daughter, but Thomas held her back. "Wait," he said. "Look." Iris was making her sounds again. But now they were louder, more confident. The cub responded immediately. They could hear it moving, slowly working its way down the chimney. Brick dust and soot fell like snow, covering Iris's blonde hair. The mother bear scratched at the cabin door. Her growls grew more aggressive. She could smell her baby but couldn't find it. The door shook under her weight. Inside the chimney, something incredible was happening. The cub had reached the ledge. Iris sat perfectly still as the young bear approached. Its black fur was matted with soot, its eyes wide with fear. But when it saw Iris, it stopped trembling. Iris reached out her tiny hand. The cub sniffed it cautiously. Then, in a moment that defied all logic, the wild animal pressed its head against the baby's palm. Iris giggled, the sound bouncing off the chimney walls. "They're touching," Rachel whispered. "Our baby is petting a bear cub." The cub was smaller than they'd expected, probably only 3 months old. It huddled against Iris, seeking comfort. The baby wrapped her small arms around it, not afraid at all. Outside, the mother bear had found a window. Her massive paw struck the glass. Cracks spread across the pane. She was getting desperate. "We need to get them out," Thomas said. "Both of them, now." He reached into the chimney. "Iris, give me the cub." But when he tried to take the young bear, it panicked. It scrambled away from his hands, pressing closer to Iris. The baby held it tighter, making soothing sounds. The window shattered. The mother bear's head pushed through the opening. Her eyes were wild with fear and rage. She roared, the sound shaking the entire cabin. Iris looked up at the mother bear through the chimney opening. Then she did something that made her parents' hearts stop. She lifted the cub toward the chimney's interior, as if showing it to someone above. Her infant voice rang out, clear and purposeful, making sounds no baby should know how to make. The mother bear froze. Her roar cut short. She pulled her head back from the window and listened. The sounds Iris was making seemed to reach her, calm her. Thomas and Rachel watched in stunned silence as their 11-month-old daughter somehow communicated with a wild bear. The cabin fell quiet except for Iris's melodic sounds and the cub's responding chirps. "How is she doing this?" Rachel whispered. Before Thomas could answer, Iris began moving. Still holding the cub, she crawled back through the opening. The young bear didn't resist. It seemed to trust her completely. Once out of the chimney, Iris sat on the cabin floor with the cub in her lap. It was covered in soot, scared but unharmed. The baby looked up at her parents with bright eyes as if to say, "See? I told you I could do it." The mother bear had moved to the front door again, but her scratching was gentler now. She made low, rumbling sounds, not threatening, almost pleading. Iris struggled to her feet, still holding the cub. She toddled toward the door, her chubby legs unsteady under the extra weight. "We have to open the door," Thomas said. "She wants to reunite them." Rachel nodded. They had no choice. Their baby had already made the decision for them. Thomas walked slowly to the door, his hand trembling on the handle. "Rachel, get behind the table with Iris, just in case." But Iris wouldn't move backward. She stood firm, the cub pressed against her chest. Its small head peeked over her shoulder, black eyes scanning for its mother. Iris made more of those strange sounds. The cub responded with tiny grunts. The scratching at the door stopped. Everything went silent. Too silent. Thomas could hear his own heartbeat. Rachel held her breath. Even the forest seemed to pause. Then came a sound none of them expected. The mother bear was making the same melodic noises Iris had been making, the exact same pattern. Note for note. Iris's face lit up. She bounced on her little feet, making the cub squeak. Her free hand reached toward the door, fingers opening and closing in that baby way that meant want. "She's asking us to open it," Rachel said. Her voice shook. "Our baby is asking us to let a wild bear into our home." Thomas looked at his wife. They shared a moment of understanding. Whatever was happening here was beyond normal explanation. Their baby had some kind of connection with these animals. Fighting it might make things worse. He turned the handle. The door creaked open. The mother bear stood on the porch, massive and powerful. But her eyes weren't fierce anymore. They were focused entirely on the cub in Iris's arms. She made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr. Iris toddled forward. 1 step, 2 steps. Her parents' hearts pounded with each movement. The mother bear lowered her huge head, bringing herself to the baby's eye level. What happened next changed everything the Whitmores thought they knew about the world. Iris held out the cub, but instead of taking it immediately, the mother bear touched her nose to Iris's forehead. A gentle touch, like a blessing. The baby giggled and pressed her own tiny nose against the bear's snout. Only then did the mother take her cub. She gripped it carefully in her jaws, the way bears carry their young. The cub went limp, trusting completely, but the mother didn't leave. She stood there, looking at Iris. Iris raised her hand and placed it on the mother bear's chest. The massive animal didn't move. Iris's eyes fluttered closed. Her little body went very still. Too still. "Iris!" Rachel stepped forward. Thomas caught her arm. "Wait, look at her face." The baby's expression had changed. Her features were peaceful, but her closed eyes moved rapidly, like someone in a deep dream. The mother bear's eyes had also closed. They stood frozen together, the baby's hand on the bear's chest, connected by something invisible. The morning sun broke through the fog, casting golden light across the scene. The forest had gone completely silent. No birds, no wind, just the soft breathing of a child and a bear. Then Iris gasped. Her eyes flew open. But they weren't the same blue eyes she'd had moments before. They swirled with gold flecks, like autumn leaves caught in a whirlpool. She looked at her parents, and in that look was knowledge no baby should possess. The mother bear stepped back. She gave a low grunt to her cub, then turned toward the forest. But before disappearing into the trees, she looked back one last time. Not at her cub, at Iris. Iris waved bye-bye like any normal baby would, but the sounds she made weren't normal. They were the same bear sounds, but mixed with something else. Something older. The bears vanished into the forest. The spell broke. Birds began singing again. The wind rustled through the pines. The world resumed its normal rhythm, except nothing was normal anymore. Iris turned to her parents. The gold flecks in her eyes were already fading, returning to their usual blue. She yawned, suddenly exhausted, and reached for her mother. Rachel scooped her up. The baby felt different somehow. Heavier? No, that wasn't it. More solid, more real. as if she'd been partly somewhere else before and had now fully returned. "Did you see her eyes?" Rachel whispered. Thomas nodded. He couldn't speak. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what they'd witnessed. His 11-month-old daughter had just communicated with wild bears, had touched one and... what? Shared something with it? They went back inside. The cabin felt different too. Warmer despite the broken window. Safer despite the shattered glass. The chimney opening gaped at them, a reminder of how the morning had started. Iris was already falling asleep in Rachel's arms, but just before her eyes closed completely, she mumbled something. Not baby talk, a real word. "Soon." Rachel and Thomas looked at each other. "Did she just—" "She said soon," Thomas confirmed. Her first word. But what did it mean? Soon what? They spent the rest of the morning cleaning up. Thomas boarded the broken window. Rachel swept up the glass and soot. They worked in thoughtful silence, processing the morning's events. Iris slept deeper than usual. Her breathing was slow and even. Occasionally, she would make small sounds in her sleep. Bear sounds, bird sounds, sounds no human baby should know. Around noon, Iris woke up hungry. She seemed normal again, giggling at her parents, playing with her spoon, dropping food on the floor, just a regular baby. Except for the moments when she would pause and look toward the forest. Her head would tilt, as if listening to something her parents couldn't hear. Then she'd return to her mashed bananas, content. "We should tell someone," Rachel said as she fed Iris lunch. "Tell them what?" Thomas asked. "That our baby talks to bears? That she crawled into a chimney and rescued a cub? That a wild bear touched her and something magical happened?" Rachel sighed. He was right. No one would believe them. They barely believed it themselves. That afternoon, while Iris napped, they heard scratching at the door again. Thomas grabbed the poker, ready for anything. But when he peered through the window, he laughed. "You need to see this," he told Rachel. On their porch sat 3 raccoons. They were arranged in a perfect line, each holding something in their tiny paws. Berries. Fresh berries from deep in the forest where humans rarely went. "They brought gifts," Rachel said in wonder. The raccoons chittered and placed the berries on the doorstep. Then they sat back, waiting. Their eyes were fixed on the door, patient, expectant. "They're here for Iris," Thomas realized. As if hearing her name, the baby stirred in her crib. She made a sound, that same melodic pattern from the morning. The raccoons responded immediately, their chittering matching her rhythm. Rachel opened the door. The raccoons didn't run. They waited as she picked up the berries. One of them stood on its hind legs and made a gesture, almost like a bow. "Thank you," Rachel said, feeling slightly foolish for talking to raccoons. They chittered once more and scampered away. But not far. They climbed the nearest tree and settled on a branch. Watching. Waiting. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Rachel asked. Thomas pulled her close. "I think so. Whatever happened this morning, whatever Iris did, the forest knows." They watched their daughter sleep. She looked so normal, so innocent. But they'd seen the gold in her eyes, they'd heard her speak with the voice of the wild. They knew their little girl was special in ways they couldn't understand. As the sun set, more animals appeared at the edge of their property. A doe with her fawn. A family of foxes. Even a great horned owl perched on their mailbox, all watching, all waiting. That night, as they prepared for bed, Thomas boarded up the chimney opening. "Just in case," he said. But they both knew it wasn't bears they needed to worry about anymore. It was the questions. How had Iris known what to do? Why could she communicate with animals? What had passed between her and the mother bear in that moment of connection? And most importantly, what did soon mean? They got their answer 3 days later. But that's when everything became even stranger. When the real mystery began, when they learned that their daughter's gift was just the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would change not just their lives, but the entire Pine Ridge Valley. Something that had been sleeping in the forest for a very long time, waiting for the right child to wake it up. 3 days passed in strange quietness. The animals continued their vigil around the cabin. They never came too close, but they were always there. Watching, waiting. The Whitmores learned to live with their new forest audience. Iris seemed different. She still played and laughed like any baby, but there were moments. Moments when she would freeze mid-giggle and stare at empty air. Moments when her eyes would get that distant look, as if seeing something beyond the cabin walls. On the third night, Thomas woke to find their bedroom bathed in soft green light. He sat up, heart racing. The light was coming from the hallway, from Iris's room. He shook Rachel awake. Together they crept down the hall. The green glow pulsed gently like a heartbeat. They pushed open Iris's door. Their daughter was standing in her crib, not holding the rails for support, just standing perfectly balanced. Her eyes were wide open, glowing with that same green light. And she wasn't alone. The room was full of fireflies, thousands of them. They swirled around Iris in perfect patterns, creating shapes in the air. First a bear, then a tree, then something else. A symbol neither parent recognized. Iris raised her tiny hands. The fireflies responded, dancing between her fingers. She was conducting them like an orchestra. Her mouth moved, forming words they couldn't hear. "Iris?" Rachel whispered. The baby turned to them. The green glow in her eyes intensified. When she spoke, her voice wasn't that of a baby. It was older, ancient. "The guardian wakes." Thomas grabbed Rachel's hand. Their baby's voice had changed completely. It carried the weight of centuries, the whisper of wind through old trees. "What guardian?" Thomas asked. He felt foolish talking to his infant daughter like this, but what else could he do? Iris tilted her head. The fireflies swirled faster. "The one who sleeps beneath the great oak, the one who waits, the one who chose me." The fireflies suddenly scattered, flying out through the closed window as if the glass wasn't there. The green light faded. Iris blinked, and her eyes returned to normal. She plopped down in her crib and started sucking her thumb. Just like that, she was a baby again. Rachel rushed to pick her up. Iris cooed happily, reaching for her mother's hair. Whatever had just spoken through her was gone. "The great oak," Thomas said. "I know that tree. It's the oldest in the valley, must be 300 years old." Rachel rocked Iris gently. "You're not thinking of going there. We need answers, Rach. Our daughter is... Something's happening to her. To us, we can't just ignore it." They spent the rest of the night awake, watching Iris sleep peacefully. When dawn broke, they made a decision. They would visit the great oak. The morning was crisp and clear. They bundled Iris up and set out into the forest. The animals followed. Not just watching now, actively following. The deer walked parallel to them through the trees. Birds hopped from branch to branch overhead. Even a family of rabbits bounded along beside the trail. The great oak stood in a clearing deep in the forest. Its trunk was massive, wide enough that 6 people holding hands couldn't circle it. Its branches reached toward the sky like ancient arms. The ground around it was carpeted with soft moss. As they approached, Iris began making those sounds again, the ones she'd used with the bear. But these were different, deeper, more complex. The animals responded, forming a circle around the clearing. Waiting. Thomas set Iris down on the moss. She crawled straight to the oak's trunk and placed both palms against the bark. The moment she touched it, everything changed. The air shimmered. The world seemed to hold its breath. A crack appeared in the oak's trunk, right where Iris was touching. Not damaging the tree, more like a door opening. Green light spilled from the crack, the same light they'd seen in Iris's room. It grew wider, revealing a hollow space inside the ancient tree. And in that space, Rachel gasped. Thomas stepped backward. Inside the oak was a figure, human-shaped but made entirely of light and shadow. It had been sleeping, coiled in the heart of the tree. Now its eyes opened. Eyes exactly like Iris's had been, gold-flecked, ancient, knowing. The figure unfolded itself and stepped out of the oak. It stood 7 feet tall, neither male nor female, both solid and translucent. When it moved, leaves rustled without wind. When it breathed, flowers bloomed in its footsteps. It knelt before Iris. The baby laughed and reached for the being's face. Their foreheads touched. Images flooded the clearing. Not just visible to Thomas and Rachel. The images hung in the air like holograms. They saw the valley as it was centuries ago. They saw the first people who lived here, living in harmony with the forest. They saw a pact being made between human and nature. A guardian chosen to protect the balance. They saw the guardian retreating into the oak when the old ways were forgotten. Sleeping. Waiting. Waiting for a child pure enough to wake it. A child who could bridge both worlds. The images faded. The guardian spoke, its voice like wind through leaves. She is the bridge, the new guardian, born of your world, chosen by ours. The forest remembers its promise. Through her, the balance returns. Why Iris? Rachel found her voice. She's just a baby. The guardian smiled. It was a strange sight on that inhuman face. She sees without judgment, loves without condition, speaks the first language, the one all creatures knew before words divided us. She is perfect. Iris giggled and patted the guardian's cheek. Where she touched, flowers bloomed on the being's translucent skin. The guardian's expression softened. She will grow, learn. When she is ready, she will take my place. Until then, I will teach her. The forest will teach her. You will teach her to be human. We will teach her to be more. Take your place? Thomas stepped forward. What does that mean? The guardian stood, lifting Iris with it. The baby seemed delighted, playing with the flowers that grew from the being's shoulders. Every generation, a guardian is chosen. One who stands between the human world and the natural world. One who keeps the balance. Your daughter is that one. The animals in the circle grew restless. They sensed something. The guardian's expression changed. But choosing comes with a price. There are those who would stop her, who fear the return of the old ways, who profit from the imbalance. A new sound echoed through the forest. Engines. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. The guardian's form flickered. They know she's awakened. They felt it when she touched the oak. They come to stop what has begun. The guardian handed Iris back to Rachel. Protect her. Trust the forest. Remember, she is the bridge. The guardian began to fade back into the oak. But before disappearing completely, it touched Iris's forehead one more time. A mark appeared. A small leaf, glowing green, then fading until it was barely visible. When she needs me, I will come. When you need help, ask the forest. The pact is renewed. The guardian rises. The crack in the oak sealed. The clearing looked normal again, except for the animals still circled protectively around them, and the sound of engines getting closer. We need to go, Thomas said. Now. They ran. The animals ran with them. Deer bounded ahead, checking the path. Birds cried warnings from above. The forest itself seemed to help, branches parting to let them through, roots flattening to prevent trips. Behind them, they heard vehicles crashing through the undergrowth. Voices shouting, dogs barking. Whoever was coming, they weren't friendly. Iris remained calm in Rachel's arms. She watched the fleeing animals with interest, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed to direct them. A bear appeared. Not the mother from before, but a large male. It placed itself between them and the pursuers. They burst out of the forest near their cabin, but vehicles were already there, black SUVs, men in dark suits. One man stood apart from the others, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. He smiled when he saw them. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, we need to talk about your daughter." Thomas pushed Rachel behind him. "Who are you?" "Agent Hartley, Special Division of Wildlife Management. We monitor unusual activities in protected forests. Your daughter triggered every sensor we have. The energy spike from that oak tree could be felt 3 states away." "I don't understand," Thomas said, though he understood perfectly. Hartley's smile widened. "Let's not play games. Your daughter just awakened something that's been dormant for 100 years. Something dangerous. Something that threatens the natural order." "The natural order?" Rachel spoke up. "You mean the imbalance, the destruction, the forgetting?" Hartley's eyes narrowed. "I see it spoke to you, filled your head with fairy tales about guardians and balance. Let me tell you the truth. That thing in the oak, it's not human, it never was, and it wants to use your daughter to reclaim this land, to drive humans out." "That's not true," Rachel said, but doubt crept into her voice. How much did they really know? "Isn't it? Your baby is talking to animals, controlling them. That's not natural. That's possession. We're here to help her, to free her from its influence." Iris stirred in Rachel's arms. She looked at Hartley and made a sound. Not a baby sound. A growl, the exact sound a bear would make when threatened. Hartley stepped back. "You see? It's already changing her. Come with us. We have facilities, specialists. We can save her." The animals emerged from the forest. Bears, wolves, deer, foxes, even a mountain lion. They formed a line between the family and the agents. The message was clear. Hartley raised his hand. "Stand down. No one shoots. We're not here for violence." He looked at Thomas. "But this isn't over. That thing your daughter woke. It's not the only one sleeping. There are others. Darker things, hungry things, and her power will wake them all." "You're lying," Thomas said. But he remembered the Guardian's words about those who would stop them, who profited from imbalance. Am I? Ask yourself, why did it choose a baby? Someone too young to question? Too innocent to see the trap? Think about it. We'll be watching. When you're ready to protect your daughter, really protect her, you know where to find us." The agents retreated to their vehicles. But before leaving, Hartley called out one more time. "The first full moon is in 6 days. That's when the real changes begin. That's when you'll see what your daughter is becoming. We'll be ready to help. The question is, will you be ready to let us?" The vehicles drove away. The animals slowly dispersed back into the forest. The Whitmores stood alone outside their cabin, holding their daughter. Iris looked up at them with innocent eyes. The leaf mark on her forehead was invisible now. She yawned and snuggled into Rachel's chest. Just a tired baby after an exciting morning. But they knew better now. Their daughter was something special, something powerful, something that forces they didn't understand were fighting to control. The Guardian had called her the bridge. Hartley called her a threat. But what was the truth, and what would happen when the full moon rose? Thomas put his arm around his family. Whatever comes, we face it together. Rachel nodded. Together. In her mother's arms, Iris slept, and in her sleep she smiled, as if she knew something her parents didn't, as if the real story was just beginning. The next morning brought no peace. Thomas woke to find strange symbols carved into the trees around their property. Not rough cuts, smooth, as if the wood had simply decided to reshape itself. The symbols matched the one the fireflies had formed in Iris's room. They appeared overnight, Rachel said, holding a cup of coffee with shaking hands. Every tree, all facing the house. Iris sat in her high chair, eerily quiet. She wasn't playing or babbling, just watching. Her eyes tracked something invisible moving around the room. When Thomas followed her gaze, he saw nothing, but he felt it. A presence, waiting. A knock at the door made them both jump. Through the window they saw an elderly woman dressed in simple clothes carrying a worn leather bag. She looked harmless, but after yesterday they trusted nothing. "Please," the woman called. "I knew your grandmother, Thomas. I've come to help." Thomas opened the door cautiously. The woman smiled. Her eyes were kind but knowing. Too knowing. "My name is Mrs. Elena Crow. I'm what you might call a keeper of the old stories. May I come in? We have much to discuss before the moon rises." Something about her felt different from Hartley and his agents. The animals hadn't warned them. In fact, a sparrow sat peacefully on her shoulder. Thomas let her in. Mrs. Crow went straight to Iris. The baby reached for her immediately. When their hands touched, the leaf mark on Iris's forehead glowed faintly green. "So young," Mrs. Crow murmured. "The youngest ever chosen. The forest must be desperate." "Desperate for what?" Rachel asked. Mrs. Crow settled into a chair, her movements careful and deliberate. "To survive. You've noticed the changes, haven't you? The summers getting hotter, the winters more violent, the animals acting strange, the forest dying in patches where it once thrived. They had noticed. Everyone had. But what did that have to do with their daughter? The guardian spirits aren't just folklore," Mrs. Crow continued. "They're real. They've protected these lands since before humans arrived. But they're bound by rules. Ancient rules. They can only act through a human vessel. A bridge." "The guardian in the oak told us that," Thomas said. "But Hartley claims it's dangerous, that it wants to drive humans away." Mrs. Crow sighed. "Agent Hartley represents those who profit from the imbalance. Mining companies, developers. They've spent decades suppressing the old knowledge, making people forget. The Guardian isn't trying to drive humans away, it's trying to restore harmony. But harmony requires sacrifice from both sides." Iris made a sound. Not a baby sound. More like wind through leaves. Mrs. Crow nodded as if understanding. "She says the sleepers are stirring. All of them. The Guardian's awakening sent ripples through the spirit realm. Some who wake will help. Others—" She shuddered. "Others have slept so long they've forgotten everything but hunger." "What kind of others?" Rachel pulled Iris closer. Dark spirits, twisted things. They were bound by the same magic that kept the Guardian sleeping. Now that magic weakens. Your daughter will need to be strong. She'll need to learn fast. The full moon will complete her transformation." "Transformation into what?" Thomas demanded. Before Mrs. Crow could answer, the house shook. Not an earthquake, something else. The windows rattled in their frames. Outside, birds exploded from the trees in panicked flight. Iris's eyes went wide. She pointed at the floor. Cracks appeared in the wood, spreading outward from beneath her high chair. Green shoots pushed through the gaps. In seconds, vines erupted, flowering impossibly fast. The room filled with the scent of jasmine and oak. "It's starting," Mrs. Crow whispered. "She's connecting to the earth itself." The forest recognizes its new guardian. The vines reached for Iris. Rachel tried to pull her away, but the plants were gentle. They wrapped around the baby's arms like bracelets, their flowers opening to reveal golden centers that pulsed with light. Iris laughed. The sound echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple throats. The leaf mark on her forehead blazed green. When she opened her mouth, moths flew out. Beautiful Luna moths that circled the room before vanishing through the walls. "This isn't natural," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "No," Mrs. Crow agreed. "It's supernatural. The boundary between Iris and the forest is dissolving. By the full moon, she'll be able to speak for the trees, see through the eyes of animals, feel the pain of every poisoned stream." "And if we stop it?" Thomas asked. "If we side with Hartley?" Mrs. Crow's expression darkened. "Then the forest dies, the spirits fade, the balance tips beyond recovery, and the dark things that wake will have no guardian to stand against them. Your daughter isn't being possessed, she's being empowered. There's a difference." A howl cut through the air. Not a wolf, something else, something that made the hair on their necks stand up. The vines around Iris withered and retreated. She whimpered, reaching for her parents. What was that? Rachel scooped up her daughter. Mrs. Crow stood, her face pale. "Something that should still be sleeping. Something drawn by your daughter's power." She moved to the window. "We need to leave. Now. There's a place I can take you. Sacred ground where the old protections still hold." Another howl, closer. The windows frosted over despite the warm morning. Shadows moved in the forest. Too large to be natural animals. They packed quickly. Outside, the animals had returned, forming a protective circle. The bear from yesterday was back, standing on its hind legs, scanning the tree line. The deer stamped nervously. Even the birds seemed ready to fight. As they loaded the car, Hartley's voice crackled from a speaker they couldn't see. "This is your last chance, Mr. Whitmore. We have the house surrounded. Give us the child, and we'll protect you all. Those things coming for her, we're the only ones who can stop them." "He's lying," Mrs. Crow said. But doubt flickered in her eyes. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Frost spread across the car windows. In the forest, something massive moved between the trees. Something with too many legs, too many eyes. Iris screamed. Not a baby's cry, the shriek of a hawk. Every animal echoed her call. The sound was deafening, powerful. It pushed back the cold, shattered the frost. For a moment, the shadows retreated. "Drive," Mrs. Crow commanded. "The sanctuary is 12 miles north. Follow the river." Thomas gunned the engine. They tore down the dirt road, animals running alongside. Behind them, the forest writhed with unnatural movement. Whatever was chasing them, it was big, and it was angry. Iris had gone silent in her car seat. Her eyes were closed, but the leaf mark pulsed with steady light. Rachel reached back to touch her daughter's hand. The moment they connected, images flooded her mind. The dark spirit, ancient, hungry. It had slept beneath the mountain, bound by the same magic that held the oak guardian. But where the guardian dreamed of balance, this thing dreamed of dominion. It wanted to consume, to corrupt, to turn the forest into something twisted. And it wanted Iris. Not to kill her, to possess her. To use her connection to the natural world for its own ends. Rachel gasped, pulling her hand back. "It wants to use her. Like Hartley said, but not the guardian. This thing, this darkness. Mrs. Crow nodded grimly. The shadow guardian. Every light casts a shadow. When the oak guardian woke, so did its opposite. This is why the choosing usually happens slowly, with an adult. A child can be influenced, corrupted. The car lurched as something struck it from behind. Thomas fought to control the vehicle. In the rearview mirror he saw it, the thing chasing them. It was huge, part animal, part shadow, part nightmare. Multiple heads on a serpentine body, eyes that burned with cold fire. Where it touched the road, the asphalt cracked and blackened. "Faster!" Mrs. Crow shouted. The animals kept pace, but some fell back to block the creature. The bear roared defiance before being swept aside. Deer threw themselves at the monster, buying seconds. Birds dove at its many eyes. Iris's eyes snapped open. They blazed with green fire. She raised her tiny hands, and the forest responded. Trees bent inward, branches reaching for the shadow beast. Roots erupted from the ground, tangling its many legs. The creature howled in rage. Its voice was winter wind and dying stars. It spoke words in a language that predated human speech. Dark promises, terrible truths. "Don't listen." Mrs. Crow covered her ears. "It lies with truth, corrupts with facts. Block it out." But Iris wasn't blocking it out. She was answering. Her baby voice carried power now, speaking the same ancient tongue. The mark on her forehead blazed brighter. The two forces clashed. Light and shadow, growth and decay, hope and despair. The car windows cracked from the pressure. Thomas's nose began to bleed. Then, suddenly, they burst from the forest onto a paved road. The shadow creature stopped at the tree line, unable or unwilling to follow, its many eyes fixed on Iris with hunger and hatred. "You cannot run forever, little guardian," its voice echoed in their minds. "The moon rises soon. When it does, you must choose, light or shadow, growth or power. You cannot have both." The thing melted back into the forest. The pressure lifted. Iris slumped in her car seat, exhausted. The leaf mark faded to barely visible. "The sanctuary," Mrs. Crow pointed ahead. "Turn at the stone markers." Ancient standing stones flanked a narrow dirt road. As they passed between them, Thomas felt something shift. The air grew lighter, cleaner, safer. The road led to a clearing where an old stone building stood. Part church, part fortress, part something older. Symbols covered its walls, not Christian but not pagan either, something in between. "Welcome to the sanctuary of the First Compact," Mrs. Crow said. "Built where human and spirit first made peace, the shadow cannot enter here, but neither can the oak guardian. This is neutral ground." They parked and got out. Iris seemed normal again, reaching for her toys, babbling happily. But the forest animals stopped at the edge of the clearing. They couldn't enter either. "Now what?" Rachel asked, holding Iris tight. Mrs. Crow led them inside. The interior was simple but strangely comfortable. Herbs hung from the rafters. Books lined the walls. A fire crackled in the hearth, though no one had been there to light it. "Now we prepare," Mrs. Crow said. "In 5 days the moon will be full. Iris will complete her transformation. She'll become either the guardian of balance or the vessel of shadow. The choice must be hers, but we can help her understand what she's choosing." "She's not even 1 year old," Thomas protested. "How can she choose anything?" Mrs. Crow smiled sadly. "Age means nothing to the spirits. They see souls, not years. Your daughter's soul is old, very old. This isn't her first time as guardian, but it might be her most important." Iris crawled toward the fireplace. She sat before it, watching the flames. In the fire, shapes danced. Not random, purposeful, Stories played out in smoke and light. "She's remembering," Mrs. Crow whispered. "Past lives, past choices. The fire helps her see." They watched their daughter watch the flames. So small, so young, so important. Outside, the sun set, somewhere in the forest, light and shadow prepared for war. And in the sanctuary, a baby began to remember why she was born. The full moon was coming. And with it, a choice that would determine the fate of everything. 5 days passed in the sanctuary. Each day, Iris grew more aware, more connected. She would sit for hours watching the fire, her eyes reflecting depths no infant should possess. Sometimes she spoke, not baby talk, but words in languages long forgotten. Mrs. Crow translated what she could. "She speaks of the first compact," the old woman explained, "when humans were young and spirits were everywhere, when the world was whole." Thomas and Rachel watched their daughter change. Her hair grew faster than normal, already touching her shoulders. The leaf mark on her forehead became more pronounced. When she laughed, flowers bloomed. When she cried, rain fell. On the 4th night, Hartley's voice echoed from outside the sanctuary. "The shadow creature grows stronger. It's corrupting the forest, turning animals into monsters. Give us the child. We have weapons that can stop this." "Your weapons started this," Mrs. Crow called back. "Your people dug too deep, mined too greedily. You woke the shadow first years ago. The forest chose Iris to fix your mistakes." "The forest chose wrong," Hartley replied. "She's too young, too vulnerable. The shadow will take her." That night, Iris couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, watching the moon grow. Tomorrow it would be full. Tomorrow she would choose. Rachel held her daughter. "I wish you could just be normal, just be our baby." Iris turned to her mother. For a moment her eyes were purely human, young, scared, loving. She pressed her tiny hand to Rachel's cheek. Images flooded Rachel's mind. Every choice Iris had ever made, in every life. Guardian after guardian, age after age. Always choosing balance, always paying the price, always alone in the end. "Not alone," Iris whispered. Her first full sentence. Not this time. The final day dawned gray and heavy. Storm clouds gathered, but no rain fell. The animals had returned, surrounding the sanctuary. Waiting. Even Hartley's agents pulled back, knowing something momentous was coming. As the sun set, Mrs. Crow led them outside. A circle of standing stones surrounded a flat altar stone. Ancient symbols glowed faintly in the dying light. "This is where the first compact was made," Mrs. Crow explained. "Where human and spirit joined, where guardians are truly born." The full moon rose, impossibly large and bright. Its light turned everything silver. Iris actually walked, despite being only 11 months old, to the altar stone. She climbed up and stood in the center. 2 figures materialized. The oak guardian, made of light and growing things. The shadow guardian, formed from darkness and hunger. They stood on opposite sides of the circle. "Choose," they spoke in unison. "Light or shadow, growth or power. You cannot serve both." Iris looked at each guardian, then at her parents, then at the moon. She raised her arms and spoke in a voice that was hers, but also more. "I choose neither. I choose both." The guardians recoiled. This wasn't possible. The choice had always been binary, light or dark, never both. "You made the compact when the world was simple," Iris continued, "when light and shadow were enemies. But the world has changed. Humans have changed. The forest has changed. The old compact is broken." She turned to the oak guardian. "You offer growth without death, but death feeds life. Without shadow, light has no meaning." She faced the shadow guardian. You offer power without purpose, but power alone consumes itself. Without light, shadow is nothing. The moon pulsed brighter. The standing stones hummed with energy. Something new was happening, something unprecedented. I am the bridge, Iris declared, not between human and spirit, between light and shadow, between growth and decay, between all opposites. I choose balance, true balance, the new compact. Both guardians moved toward her. The Oak Guardian's light met the Shadow Guardian's darkness. Where they touched Iris, they merged. She glowed with silver light, not green, not black, but something new. Moonlight, starlight, the light of balance itself. The mark on her forehead changed. Not just a leaf now, a tree with the roots in shadow and branches in light. The symbol of the new compact. Power flooded through the circle. The watching animals cried out, not in fear, but in recognition. The forest itself sighed as ancient magic rewrote itself. Adapted, evolved. When the light faded, Iris stood transformed, still a baby in body, but her eyes held the wisdom of ages. Both guardians had vanished. Not destroyed, absorbed, part of her now. She turned to her parents and smiled, a real smile, a baby's smile. Mama, Dada. Rachel rushed forward, scooping up her daughter. Iris giggled, perfectly normal except for the silver mark on her forehead. The terrible choice was over. She had found a third way. Mrs. Crow laughed, tears streaming down her face. Impossible, child. You rewrote the rules, created a new compact. The forest has never had a guardian like you. In the distance, Hartley's vehicles started their engines. There was nothing left to fight. The crisis had passed. The shadow was not defeated, but integrated. The light was not dominant, but balanced. As they walked back to the sanctuary, Thomas asked, "What happens now?" "Now we raise our daughter," Rachel said. "She'll grow up knowing what she is, what she chose, but she'll also have a normal life, school, friends, first dates, graduation. The guardian can wait, the baby comes first." Iris yawned in her mother's arms. The silver mark faded to barely visible. Tomorrow she would crawl and babble and play with blocks. But when the forest needed her, she would answer. When balance was threatened, she would act. She was the bridge, the first guardian of the new compact, the child who chose both light and shadow and found power in their union. The full moon set. The sun rose on a changed world, and in a small cabin in Pine Ridge Valley, a family sat down to breakfast. Just an ordinary family with an extraordinary baby. A baby who had saved the world by refusing to choose sides. The bear cub from that first morning appeared at their window. Iris waved at it, laughing. The cub waved back with its paw, then scampered off to find its mother. Life went on, but now it went on in balance, true balance. The balance of opposites united. The bridge was built, the guardian was chosen, and she was only just beginning. In years to come, Iris would grow into her power. She would face new challenges, make new choices, but she would never be alone. She had her parents. She had Mrs. Crow, who became like a grandmother. She had the forest and all its creatures. And deep inside, where light met shadow, she had the wisdom of the new compact. The understanding that opposing forces need not destroy each other. They could dance. They could merge. They could create something greater than either alone. The world had been waiting for a guardian like her. A guardian who could see beyond ancient conflicts to new possibilities. A baby who could teach even immortal spirits that there was another way. As Thomas tucked Iris into her crib that night, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes. The silver mark gleamed faintly in the moonlight. "Story?" she asked. Thomas smiled. "Which one?" "The three bears?" Iris shook her head. "Real story, tree story, shadow and light. That's your story, little one, and it's just beginning. Iris smiled and closed her eyes. In her dreams, she danced with light and shadow, keeping the balance, protecting the bridge between worlds. The youngest guardian, the wisest soul, the child who changed everything by refusing to choose. The forest slept peacefully. The compact was renewed. And in Pine Ridge Valley, miracles became ordinary, just another part of life. Because sometimes the most shocking thing a baby can do is show the world a new way to see.